Hey, hi Girl Scouts. My name is Flask and I'm a volunteer for the Girl Scouts of the Green and White Mountains. When I was a junior scout back in 1974, when I was a junior scout back in 1974, I learned how to tie a square knot and I learned how to tie a clove hitch, but what I didn't learn for a really long time was what to do with knots and why they would be useful. So what I want to do for you is make a set of videos that will teach you how to tie some plain and fancy knots and what to do with them. So I hope that'll be useful for you and I hope it'll be fun. So today I want to talk to you about knot tying terminology, and we'll tie an overhand knot just to start off. So you take a piece of rope. I'm using paracord because it's easy to get, but you can use any string or rope that you happen to have handy. It doesn't have to be fancy or anything, but it should be long enough you can do things with it and short enough that you don't make a big tangle in your lap. The end you're working with we call the working end, and the part that just dangles and you're not doing anything with, we call that the standing end. When you have a piece of rope that is like this, and it makes that U, that's called a bight, B-I-G-H-T. And if you cross the rope over itself and make it like that, that's a loop. That's an important difference in how a knot gets tied. Sometimes it matters if the loop crosses on the front or if the loop crosses on the back. But for today's knot, the overhand knot, it doesn't really matter. The overhand knot is probably the easiest knot to tie, but there's not much it does all by itself. You can't do a lot with an overhand knot, but it's foundational, which is a word that means you build things on it. And I'm just tying some. I'm making a loop, and then I'm putting the working end through the loop and pulling it tight. I have a piece of dental floss. I use this as a map tool. I took a piece of dental floss and I made my overhand knots at even intervals so I could use it to measure on a map, which is the most useful thing I've done with an overhand knot. So I'm making a loop. I'm wrapping it around my fingers. You can poke a bight through and then reeve it all the way through, and reeve is a word that we use. That means when you pull something all the way through. You can wrap it around your fingers and put the working end through that loop. But there's always a loop, and you put the end through the loop. You can do that. I'm going to switch to the other end now because I got a lot of overhand knots in there. You can do that without wrapping it around your fingers. You can just make a loop and then put the working end through. And that's what it looks like tied in the hand. Let's look at what it looks like when it's tied on the table, which you maybe don't need to see how it's tied on the table as an overhand knot, but for more complicated knots, it is useful to do it that way. A good knot is whatever knot that does the thing you want it to do is the easiest to tie of the knots that do the thing you want them to do, and it will come untied when you need it to. So let's look at it on the table. So here's a loop, and then I'm going to put the working end through the loop. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but you have to make it come around the rope or you don't get anything. A loop. And then reeve through the end. So loop, and then put the end through. I think I have room for one more. I'm going to make the loop the other way so that it crosses underneath, which means I have to put it through from the top. But it's the same knot, it just goes the other way now. So that's it for today. Keep tying!